Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be among so many fellow dedicated patriots. I'd like to begin tonight by introducing you to 4 average American citizens. First, I present Miss Teacher, an educator and author devoted to topics such as education, welfare, and the modern feminist movement. Next are Mr. and Mrs. Preacher, who, with their 3 children, diligently serve their congregation and the local community by running a food shelf and teaching them from the Bible. Lastly, Mr. Hunter is active in the National Rifle Association. As an advocate for the Second Amendment, he volunteers at the community center, teaching firearm safety to the youth in his area. These 4 Americans live full lives, enjoying the freedoms that the United States Constitution provides for all Americans. In return, they share their talents and resources with their neighbors and surrounding communities. In the same way, you and I, as Americans, have experienced great liberty as a part of our everyday lives. We've enjoyed the fruits of our labor, pursued our interests in freedom, and securely managed our personal affairs, such as finances, healthcare, and education, privately, under the protection of the 4th Amendment. The tradition of liberty was established long before the Constitution was written. Our founding fathers stated in the Declaration of Independence that all men are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The signers of the Declaration affirmed this statement by pledging their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor in defense of it. The liberties of Americans have been hard won. From the frigid winter landing of the Pilgrims at Plymouth in December of 1620, to the midnight battle of Lexington in 1775, to the beaches of Normandy in 1944, Americans have struggled, have fought, have died to preserve these freedoms. These freedoms have caused our country to become an icon of liberty to the world. The framers of the Constitution knew from experience that without protection, the people's God-given rights would be breached. They therefore stated in the preamble to the Constitution that they, in order to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. On this foundational belief in God-endowed liberty, the delegates to the Constitutional Convention ordained the law of the land. Ladies and gentlemen, this same Constitution, which is, according to James Madison, blessed by the finger of the Almighty, is being besieged. It is besieged not by distant enemies, but by United States government officials. The very leaders chosen to protect our freedom and bound to upholding our Constitution are usurping powers not granted to them, rather than lawfully amending the Constitution, as provided by Article 5. Consider that Articles 1, 2, and 3 divide governmental powers into 3 distinct branches, each with their own unique and limited powers. Legislative authority to Congress, enforcement of the law to the executive branch, and interpretation of the law to the judiciary. The 10th Amendment further limits federal power by reserving a majority of governance for the states and the people, declaring all powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. These sections of the Constitution clearly and specifically limit the powers of the federal government. The following Supreme Court cases reveal the court's blatant disregard for its limited powers. In Lee v. Wiseman of 1992, the court prohibited Providence, Rhode Island schools from inviting clergy to offer invocations or benedictions at their high school graduation ceremonies. This directly violates the First Amendment, which protects the free exercise of both speech and religion, as well as the 10th Amendment, which defers educational policy to the states and the people, not the federal government. In Roe v. Wade of 1973, the court ruled that the abortion of unborn children was a fundamental liberty, despite the 10th Amendment, which places medical matters completely outside the realm of the federal government. And despite the Declaration of Independence, the cornerstone of the Constitution, which defines life as an unalienable right. Thomas Paine, a dynamic figure in the birth of our nation, said, "All power exercised over a nation must have some beginning. It must either be delegated or assumed. There are no other sources. All delegated power is trust, and all assumed power is usurpation. Time does not alter the nature and quality of either." These Supreme Court decisions, a small sample of many unconstitutional rulings, are a twofold violation of the Constitution. One, the court assumed the power of creating laws, a power it was not delegated. And two, it neglected to protect the rights that it is charged to uphold. Do these rulings not resonate of judicial usurpation? Regrettably, breaching of the Constitution is by no means limited to the judicial branch. The office of President has been used to issue 13,568 executive orders as of March 8, 2011, and pass over 5,000 executive agreements, which are treaties made by the President without the two-thirds consent of the Senate that Article 2 requires. In addition, in 2010, Congress passed the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, which is in essence a federalized plan for health care across the nation that forces citizens to either participate or be penalized several $1,000s each year. Previously, many states challenged its enactment due to a minor obstacle, the Constitution. The United States Constitution, according to the 4th and 10th Amendments, does not permit socialized health care mandated by the federal government. To skirt around this obstacle, Chief Justice Roberts effectively theorized Obamacare into a tax, supposedly placing it within the jurisdiction of Congress. Mission accomplished. Constitution? Dismissed. This debasement of the Constitution and encroachment on personal liberty can only be remedied if we, the people, employ 3 corrective measures. First, we must acknowledge the God who has overseen the affairs of this great nation since the beginning. John Adams said, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is entirely inadequate to the government of any other." Secondly, we must elect officials who will honor their oath of office established in Article 6 to preserve and protect the Constitution. And last, we must use our freedom of speech to be advocates for our own freedom. Recall the 4 Americans previously introduced. They are endowed with a Constitution that was written to protect their freedom to speak their beliefs aloud, act on their convictions, manage their personal affairs, properly care for their families, and help those in need. These are the rights that are being undermined. This rapid usurpation is changing America into a radically different nation. 20 years is all it took for the German government to federalize education, disarm the populace, and silence the people, transforming Germany into a fascist nation ruled by the Third Reich. If every American could experience Germany in 1940, they would be alarmed into action. Action on behalf of our country. Ladies and gentlemen, God Almighty has endowed each of us with unalienable rights. Our founding fathers forged a constitution, our Constitution, to install a government that would protect these rights by limiting its own powers. With the continued usurpation of power by Congress, the Supreme Court, and President, who will be our champion for the redemption of our Constitution? We can. We must redeem our Constitution. For who is equal to this task if not we, the people? Heed Thomas Paine's words. It is the duty of the patriot to protect his country from its government. Will we, the people, secure the blessings of liberty against the unconstitutional usurpation of power? I believe we will. Thank you.
Una clave,